wow, maybe I was wrong about Derek Carr. He looked fantastic. And then there's times where this offense regresses significantly, but we know that they're going to be getting a new deep threat soon.
What I want to emphasize here is that, yes, they went out to East Rutherford and lost to the Giants. There are a lot of plays where they basically shot themselves in the foot. There was one play where Carr had Darren Waller wide open in the end zone and just missed a throw that maybe you or I could have made. They stalled out too many times. Even the end of the game, they had a chance to tie the game or win the game if they scored and got a 2-point conversion, and it just wasn't happening. I think it was Quincy Roche who did it. The point is that this is a day where there was a lot bigger day for the Raiders offense, but they also were playing with, I don't want to say heavy hearts. I don't even know. I would guess, Joe, and you could speak to this, having been a professional athlete, I would guess they were numb, really, because teams are a social organism and there's a family feeling in those locker rooms. I mean, in the good teams. And the Raiders have really obviously rallied through a lot of trauma, a lot of change, but this is different. And I don't think they're going to have a chance to really process this until after the season. In the middle of a season, you can't really emotionally, psychologically deal with what happened with Henry Ruggs.
No doubt.
So I think they probably, all things considered, they answered the bell about as well as you could ask in a highly emotional game that is professional football. I think they're going to be fine. And I think some of these shooting yourself in the foot plays are going to turn into touchdowns. I think this team is still going to build some momentum. Jacobs looked great. He easily could have had a touchdown or two in that game. Now that John Gruden's out, Kenyon Drake is fully involved, earning his money, and it certainly, especially if you get a point per reception,
his scoring targets for Drake was great.
Yeah, so it's all coming together, and I think this is still going to be one of the better fantasy offenses, and you should try to get a piece of it or two if you can.
Yeah, you're right on Josh Jacobs. He was one that we were considering on a couple of our teams that I do as a group with Michael Leone and Peter Overzet. And it was nice to see him continue to be used through the passing game as well. Even with Drake getting those 8 targets, we still had 4 targets go to Josh Jacobs in this game. If he gets in the box, he looks a lot different on that box score. Almost 100 total yards, I believe, in this game also. So I'm in on that, and I still think that there's been moments where Carr's been very efficient. They just kind of need to find some sort of deep threat to kind of have everything work underneath, right? Hunter Renfrow, he's basically, he's the consistent piece of this offense, I would imagine, that we can probably rely on, but there's more upside with attacking these running backs, essentially, right?
Yeah, and I think with Jacobs, too, you also have him coming out of his bye, rested. He's always on the injury report for at least one thing, and so he's probably feeling as good as he has, maybe better than he had. Remember, he came into the season hurt. So he's probably feeling as good as he has all year right now, and it's showing in his efficiency. And I still think they've got a good recipe here on offense.
Let's talk about Mike Williams, and he's someone that we're buying low on here. And a couple weeks in a row now, Sig, where it's been kind of the gradual trajectory downwards for Mike Williams. I guess I'm not sure if they've abandoned everything that was working in the beginning of the year. There's been some tough matchups kind of in between also, but I mean, we've already seen the reveal, right, Sig? So this is a guy that we should probably be buying low on.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And we talked about this before we went on the air, that what we're seeing that's thwarting us in fantasy is rational coaching on defense, right? Defenses are adjusting and allotting resources in proportion to how important the players are. So yeah, Mike Williams came out of the gate. It was like him or Cooper Kupp, who was going to be the most valuable fantasy player. Obviously, he's faded now. I think 4 of the last 5 weeks, he's been a fantasy liability. He's been somebody who not only has not given you the 8, 166, and 2 touchdowns or whatever his peak games, ceiling games were. He's giving you floor games week after week. But this week, I think you could see that they're giving him the chances. The high parts are still there. It's very disappointing. This is an Eagles pass defense. We're going to start everyone against the Eagles, right? What was the stat? 5 quarterbacks have thrown for 80% or more completion rate against them, which is tying the record of the 2015 Bucks. And I'm sure if you were playing DFS back in 2015, you're like, oh yeah, I remember the 2015 Bucks pretty well. So
no
that, I mean, it should have been a smash spot for Mike Williams. The opportunities were there. I think that he's going to continue to get the opportunities. And then you also have Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. I think over the course of a season, Joe, we're going to see the pendulum swing back and forth, right? We're going to see defenses adjust. We're seeing it with the Chiefs. We're seeing it with the Bills, right? And the question is, can offenses counterpunch? I think Justin Herbert and Mike Williams, I think they can definitely counterpunch. And Mike Williams is going to have a better second half than he's had over the last month.
No doubt. Want to remind everyone the show is on all major podcast platforms. So if you get a chance, definitely leave me a rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. Toss me a follow over on Spotify. It would mean the absolute world. Another buy low here, Sig. Dalvin Cook. And he's one of these guys that, like, at his price point in DFS and obviously in season long where you drafted this guy, you do need kind of that higher end upside through the air. We saw him break a really big play, but the volume hasn't been as great. So maybe still a decent buy low opportunity for Dalvin Cook. And honestly, the Vikings offense looked a little bit better this week, even though they kind of pissed it away at the end like they always do.
Man, the Vikings. I know. Yeah. I know that's got like local interest for you. Yeah. I don't even know what to say. Yeah. Because of the Vikings. And it's funny too how both of these teams had the outcome that typified their season, right? I'm playing another team straight up, and the Ravens find a way to win, and the Vikings find a way to lose.
Yep.
But what you have going on here for Cook is basically a runway, right? The Chargers this week. I mean, did you see what Jordan Howard did against the Chargers?
Right.
It's probably, Joe, I would have put Jordan Howard as a sell high, but I don't think anybody's buying because it was the Chargers. And then you have Green Bay, and then you have a San Francisco team that is kind of disintegrating in front of us. Look at what James Conner did to them. And then Detroit. So any one of those games to me, Joe, is ripe for that 180 total yard, 2 or 3 touchdown game that we've been waiting for from Cook. He may string a couple of them together. He's healthy now. Remember, he had a little bump in the road because he wasn't healthy.
Yep.
So it's coming. The outburst is coming from Cook.
I love the Cook call. I think that's one of the ones too that, like, anytime you can buy low on a guy that was like a top 5 pick in fantasy drafts, like going into like your fantasy like playoffs, even just like the trade deadline, these are the type of guys that you offer 2-for-1s for to try and really have that stranglehold on the elite side of the fantasy assets on wide receivers, running backs, the positions that really matter. So another one of those guys that we thought might be kind of one of our fantasy saviors this year, Sig. Sounds like we might even be at a spot now with DJ Moore. We're even selling at his low point, is what we want to do, right? So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, and I think you set me up well for a larger point here about trading, okay? Mm-hmm. Smart trades on a buy low side will feel like you're overpaying, right? Smart trades on a sell high or sell low, smart sells will feel like you're not getting enough, right? But then as the next 2 or 3 weeks unfold and we see the player's actual value, because what are you trying to find here? You're trying to find a place where the perceived value and actual value have a gap. So if you're going off of the perceived value as the standard, the trade won't feel right. But you have a different idea of the actual value. And in this case with DJ Moore, I mean, is he basically Brandon Cooks? Like, what would you give up to get Brandon Cooks right now?
Yeah,
that's what you should give up to get DJ Moore. But DJ Moore is one of those players that is kind of fetishized, and it's okay. I mean, DJ Moore is probably pound for pound a better receiver than Brandon Cooks, but his situation is just as bad as Brandon Cooks, and there's no sign that it's going to get better.
Yep.
So I just think at this point you try to sell him on name value instead of going through the excruciating playing. It's like Allen Robinson. That's another one. Mm-hmm. Allen Robinson didn't forget how to play football. We just know he's in a terrible situation. I don't know that everybody has really internalized that when we think of DJ Moore. So this might be the last chance to get off the train here. I think they got Arizona this week.
The longer you wait, Sig, like you said, like it's not like things are going to improve. They're going to continue to have Christian McCaffrey come in there and take more volume away. And man, it's such a, I don't know what Sam Darnold, Sig, like I honestly, like, I was like one of those guys that was like, okay, maybe it was Adam Gase. Maybe we'll get even a reasonable Sam Darnold this year. And it sounds like maybe that's just not going to happen, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Darnold? I know you guys dig into quarterbacks a lot deeper than I do, so I'll take your take on that.
Well, I think in Sam Darnold, you had like a bargain bin, and we look back now, and you could see this at USC. I mean, he's kind of a bargain bin Ben Roethlisberger, Jameis Winston, where he's not necessarily going to be a quarterback who flourishes in structure and takes a offensive coordinator system to the field and dissects them, but he can make some extended plays. He is athletic. He does have a good arm. He can make some off-schedule, off-platform kind of throws, but there's nothing there. There's a great quote that, speaking of the Jets, a great way that Matt Waldman put it about Zach Wilson. He said, it's icing with no cake. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's kind of where we are with Darnold. And then you add on top of that Darnold just is shell shocked. It's like David Carr early in his career. Right. Again, Eric Stone and I had a good conversation on the couch this week. last week and talked about, and of course, because my name is Sigmund and my show is called On the Couch, I'm going to get Freudian with this stuff. But it really is like childhood trauma in the sense of these quarterbacks coming into the league. And if their early career is filled with fear and failure and everything crumbling around them, then that's difficult to stop reacting to later on in your career. And I think that Darnold is just this Panthers team. You can see he sapped all their confidence. I'm not saying they should go with PJ Walker, but I think you can see that this is not the answer. It wasn't just Adam Gase, although this doesn't let Adam Gase off the hook, because Adam Gase is still part of the story of how Sam Darnold ended up here. It's just that Sam Darnold doesn't have the wherewithal to get out of this. And you look at these other quarterbacks like Justin Fields, like Zach Wilson, and you wonder sometimes, have NFL overreacted and by pushing these first round quarterbacks on the field in their rookie year? I know the media wants it. I know they're amplifying what the fans want. The fans want it. But there are some of these quarterbacks that probably would be best served, not Jordan Love, but some of the, going into incubator is actually the right way to develop them. We'll see if San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan can have some discipline and do that with Trey Lance.